Good morning, my friends and Simrites. Good morning, everyone participating in this very important summit. I am quite grateful when I saw the list of participants. Many of the people who are participating, I don't know them. That to me speaks of some generational changes that are happening, and it seems people like myself, I am joining the outgoing ones. But I'm quite grateful when I see new names, because previously we have always been complaining that we have the usual characters. But Zimra is being a very big organization. I obviously wouldn't know everyone. When we started working, when I was invited to work on this project, I accepted first because it touches on the key purpose of my life, and secondly because Zimrites is a very important organization. I grew up knowing that when you become an activist, you have to be linked with the Zimrites in one way or another. And I have also known the characters at Zimrites over a period of time. So this is, I felt this is work that needed to be done because it is home. It's in the home, it's in the house. I have got about 20 minutes, I think, that I was given. Let me stick to that. The premise of my talk this morning is the old adage that there is no development without peace. And a country like ours, Zimbabwe, is a very clear example that when you are faced with many human rights issues, apologies, I think I'm getting some. Okay, can we continue?
Yes, you can continue.
Thank you. The project Right to Peace, which I saw you also used R2P, and R2P at global level is a responsibility to protect. But I like it as Right to Peace. I think it's very grounded. It takes some work that is happening at global level with United Nations Peace Building Commission down to the continental level with the AU Peace Commission, down to our SADC region with the SADC Peace and Security Architecture, and down to Zimbabwe, particularly with the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission in existence, as well as the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission and other actors, including civil society. But this work you are doing through this manual is, to me, a very important contribution towards Zimbabwe's peace and security architecture. And what I so much appreciate is that the manual, the way you prepared it, is that it is both a resource and a guide that is going to help us achieve much more. I want to premise my discussion by pointing out that human rights violations they cause pain and trauma that haunt societies for a very long time. And as we'll go further, we'll discuss, even in our country, some of the issues that we are grappling with now, they happened so many years ago. And I have got 3 pointers. The first one is that when you promote protect and defend human rights, you are actually preventing conflict. Thus, you are promoting peace and development. In other words, especially for peace builders who always want to talk of root causes of conflict, when you promote, protect, and defend human rights, you are also dealing with the roots of conflict. Therefore, peace can only be sustained where human rights are regarded as sacrosanct. And by this, we are referring to all rights, political rights and freedoms, economic rights, ensuring equity and participation, cultural rights that promote identity and existence. We are actually dealing with the whole spectrum of human security, social justice, democracy, transparency, accountability, rule of law, post-conflict reconstruction, transitional justice, gender justice, and environmental justice. So this strong linkage here, these whole issues, they make or break a society. When you observe human rights and protect them, you are actually dealing with the causes of conflict. In other words, by promoting human rights, you are shifting from causes of conflict to causes of peace. My second pointer is to highlight the fact that there is an undoubtable nexus between human rights and peace. What I mean is, causes of conflict and violence are almost always related to human rights violations. When you talk of rights of minorities, access to socio-economic resources and development, and any denial of basic human rights and needs heightens the potential for conflict and violence. So those who studied sociology would refer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Manfred Max Neef identified 9 needs as follows: understanding, freedom, leisure, identity, protection, creation, affection, participation, subsistence. Now, let us come to Zimbabwe. The human rights discourse started in 1948. That one is very clear. By then, the attempts, the thought, the thinking was, when you observe human rights, it's equal to peace. But life and experiences have taught us that no, peace is a result of peace work. So emerged in the mid-60s academics and theorists who began to provide a clear distinction that peace studies and peace building is an overarching concept that is very important and has got aspects that are totally different, but can be complementary to the human rights discourse. And often here comes the challenge between lawyers and peace practitioners. But it's a challenge that to me sometimes it's only academic because, well, I'm happy I'm not a lawyer, but I've known lawyers that have gone on to become very powerful peace builders and peacemakers. In 1965, our teacher and mentor, Professor Johan Galtung, I'm happy Zikamai also went through his hands, so we drank from the same source. visited Zimbabwe when it was obviously Rhodesia. And UDI had just started. And Ian Smith said, there is no other happy African than a Rhodesian, a Southern Rhodesian. It was already a Rhodesian. By then, Zambia had just got independence, so we were no longer using Southern Rhodesia. But Professor Galton witnessed something that was a bit unusual in Zimbabwe. That for the same job, a black person would get 20 times less than a white person. So if you're a teacher, you would be teaching at the same school, but a white teacher would earn 20 times more than you would. And a female teacher doing the same job would even earn less than a male teacher. Already I've talked, we know it was a colonial period. Rights were, there was racism. Human rights were mainly for whites. The land issue was already a big issue. He coined, using that Zimbabwean example, a concept that has managed to stand the test of time. That in a society, there could be structures that deny human beings to achieve fullness of life. And he called it structural violence. So in other words, there are some forms of violence that are embedded in some structures in society, such that some people may not reach their potential. Put in other words, these are human rights violations that are perpetuated in societies. Along the time, he also identified cultural forms of violence. And if we look at our society, which is very patriarchal, patriarchy is one form of cultural violence in which being born a man gives more privileges to women. And the cases, an increase in cases of gender-based violence that we are experiencing, not only in Zimbabwe, but globally, are forms of cultural violence that we need to deal with. In other words, these are human rights violations that are embedded in our cultures and religions. I am a practicing Catholic. I grew up being taught that you can only become a priest if you are a man. It's a big debate, but it's a culture that now strengthens a structure that limits women, that categorizes women that they cannot achieve some certain status. Put broadly, we have cultural and structural forms of violation of people's rights that then potentially can cause direct violence. The third pointer that I want to speak to is that human rights violations are both a cause and consequence of violent conflict. And this, I bring you, those that have not started reading this manual or using it, to page 11, where we use Michelle Pavlevnet's 6 pointers she identified, and this can be broadened. But this is work that she did at the Center for Conflict Resolution back then, which I also went on to work at the Center for Conflict Resolution. And the nexus lies at the core of the fact that human rights abuses cause violent conflict. And sustained denial of human rights are actually structural causes of conflict. So when ZimRights comes with this Right to Peace program, it is raising awareness that you cannot say you are only a human rights defender who does not want to partake in working for peace. Because if you only focus on rights, you are doing half of the work. What therefore is needed is organizations like Zimrights and many others to continue breaking those silos with other organizations that would claim that our work is only peace building. When you talk of human rights, you are now talking politics. And especially in a polarized country and in a repressed country like Zimbabwe and many other countries, the issue of observing human rights becomes everyone's business. You cannot therefore say, I am a peace worker in Zimbabwe when you ignore violations of human rights, when you ignore when journalists are targeted, or human rights defenders are targeted, or opposition members are targeted. You become almost, I wouldn't want to say peace builders would be complicit if they are blind to that. But it's a challenge that we cannot talk of human rights violations and ignore the impact of those violations to the very work of peace that we want to promote and development. And as I go towards my conclusion, the capacity, and research has shown that, the capacity for a society to build resilience against any shocks increases when human rights are protected. And we witnessed the shocks, environmental shocks brought by Cyclone Idai, environmental shocks that are brought by perennial, by successive droughts that we have experienced. The other aspect that I want to conclude by highlighting is that when we are observing increase in gender-based violence and other forms of women abuses, it brings back the challenge that it is not enough to call yourself a peace builder when you are not focusing also on gender justice. And for us, culturally, we have a model and a philosophy, the philosophy of Ubuntu, that provides a framework that I am because you are, therefore we are. If we respect the rights of others, and respect our rights as well, it means we are able to promote peace through justice, promoting peace by observing and respecting and promoting human rights. This work, let it flourish. The work that we have started through this manual, and while it is, we know that it is a Zimrights manual, please share it, expand the work with other organizations and with other political platforms, so that you don't run with this important value-based combination and nexus alone. It would be my wish that every organization that is working within the realms of conflict resolution and peace building also talks of human rights as right up front, because it is no longer possible to ignore this imperative. Let me rest on this point. We cannot ignore human rights if we want to have a peaceful community. And like Joan Gautu would say, tell me how you manage conflict, and I tell you how peaceful you are. Once again, thank you, Zimrights, for this opportunity. And it has been a pleasure, and this is very interesting to be associated with production of knowledge from the global south that is based on our experiences and to improve our situations. Thank you, Chair. And I hope to continue to learn from you in this session and beyond.
Aye, 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 aye.